All right, folks. Good afternoon. It is the 17th of December. Good old Tuesday. I believe it's Tuesday. For some of you, you guys know I've been a little bit under the weather the last few days. I actually had to take a day off on Sunday. So I still wake up going, what day is it today? But today we're going to be talking about creative deals. And as you all know, for the ones that have been watching me, I've really just been focusing on the cash deals. And so doesn't mean that I turn away from sub two deals, seller financing deals, novation, and so forth. So that's why I had novation yesterday, and today would be more on the creative side. And I've invited John over here, who's a wholesaler, also an investor himself. Super straight up killer when it comes to sub two seller finance deals. Steve will be hopping on shortly. Who's an end buyer and mainly buys creative deals as well. So I'm just trying to bring resources to you guys and talk about sub two deals or creative deals and how we can get them to the finish line. But before I get to introducing John and Steve, just for some of you who are new to the channel, my name is Caesar. Just been doing this for just a little bit over 12 months now. My first 12 months, I did over 6 figures of assignment fees, closed and funded. So I'm just a regular guy who left the 9-to-5 grind and trying to create a freedom and legacy, right, for myself and for my family. So goal of the channel is really to grow together and inspire each other to action. So no excuses, just moves. So without further ado, let me introduce John. John is out of Central California. When I first started, man, I came across this guy's live calls, and I'm like, oh man, I like this guy. He's just a straight shooter. And some of you guys have always heard me say, I'm no baker. I don't like to sugarcoat things. Well, you know what? I got it from this man right here, John. So well, go ahead, John. Hey, by the way, John, you're on mute. We can hear you now.
Okay, fantastic. What's up, everybody? My name is John Motzenbacher. Most of my friends call me Motz. I am a licensed broker in California. Got my license in 2014. Got my broker's license in 2016. Started wholesaling in 2020 here in California. Governor Hairgel shut down the state, so I kind of freaked out. I didn't know what the hell to do, and I hopped onto YouTube University. Ran into a guy named Max Maxwell, and basically that guy put me up on game. I had no idea. It took about 6 months, 4 to 6 months to get my very first deal. And I've been up and running ever since then. Tripped into Pace Morby. He put me up on game about the whole creative finance. So I do a lot of the, seller finance, subject to cash deals, and then on market, off market, commercial, residential, et cetera, and so forth.
Perfect. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Steve, right on time, brother. We're just introducing ourselves, so feel free to introduce yourself as far as who you are, how long you've been in the business, where you're at, and what do you do?
Yeah, no worries. My name's Steve Anderson. I am an owner of a construction company, and I'm a developer in San Diego. I'm also one of the regional leaders for Sub 2 for Southern California. So I'm based out of San Diego, though. Typically these days I use creative finance to obviously we can do it for flips and stuff like that if we find them, but I usually just buy them for my own portfolio these days. But yeah, that's who I am, what I do, and where I'm at.
Perfect. Well, Steve, I don't know if you know John, but John's part of the sub two as well, if I'm not mistaken. He's out of Fresno. So
I see that hat. Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, how you doing? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, my man.
Yeah, nice. Yep. So so for today, guys, like nothing formal, just wanted to be kind of conversational, free flowing. I mean, obviously I do have some questions. At the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is just provide value for the viewers out there on how to go about creative deals. You guys know me very well. I'm kind of stuck on this hedgehog concept right now of just focusing on cash deals, right? And so am I the best person to talk about seller finance and sub two? No. And that's why I wanted to bring you guys, because you guys have done a lot more of these deals, and these are more your wheelhouse. So first question I got for Steve is, since you're the end buyer, right? Like, what percentage of the deals that you get, I'm pretty sure you get pitched a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, what percentage of those deals are actual deals, and how much of it are not good deals, right? Because and I know, because I'm guilty of this. I've sent you some myself. I'm like, dude, this thing cash flows. It's a great deal. And then you come back to me with like a report. And I'm like, man, I'm a fucking idiot, And so I wanted to just have a few minutes of that conversation, right? Like why did this happen? Why do people think it cash flows when it doesn't, right? And then John, for you, I think we could just have like a free flowing conversation, because on your side, being a wholesaler, right? Like what can we do as wholesalers so that Steve and buyers can get actual good deals, instead of deals that we think is good but it's really not. You know what I mean? So I think it goes hand in hand.
Yep.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's great, man. I think it just depends on your exit strategy, right? Like, right, and granted, for the record, wholesaling wise, I wholesaled for a lot of years, and I respect the hell out of folks that can rock and roll with that. I mean, that is, if you get your systems right and you're actually doing it and you're making money consistently, I respect you more than anyone else in the world, because it's a hard gig. It's a big grind, and it's very emotionally draining. That's why I got out of wholesaling, right? It's because it's emotionally draining for me. I'm an emotional dude. I attach to energies and I absorb it, and it's hard for me to disconnect that. But I guess to answer your question, right? It's like, I look at things differently than some other folks. Like, I don't care if I'm doing short-term rental, mid-term rentals, if I'm doing co-living, yada, yada, yada. I like my properties to at least have some type of positive cash flow, like as a long-term rental. And that's like my fail safe. So if the property management company that I'm using is failing, which happens all the time, right? If the the short-term rental rules and regulations in that area get a lot stricter and they go away, midterm rental, I don't really play with that anymore. But anyways, I like to have cash flow as a long-term rental, and I usually go based off the examples that I think a lot of us are taught from the get-go, right? Which are, how do you find your cash flow first? And it's going to be through a series of deducting numbers, right? How much are you getting for your property management? Your maintenance and vacancy costs. Also, too, what state you're in, right? Like, we all know, if you're playing around in Texas, the insurance is fucked up. It's a lot over there, and different types of insurance, right? So, like, for if you are a co-living person, well, guess what? You're gonna want to have a different policy on there for co-living. So it changes for everybody. I can only answer really for me, right? If it cash flows as a long-term rental, I like to at least see $300 net, right? That's what I'm looking for personally. But some people don't do it like that. Like, if you're coming, like, because this is a wholesaling, Zoom, right? Or Streamline, right?
Yep.
So when we're talking about wholesaling, don't let that discourage you, because I'm myself. There's so many buyers out there that will buy these wholesale creative deals, and they don't have to be as strict as me. Some people buy them for different reasons, including tax purposes, right? They have something to burn. I got a partner, and this is a little something that I think some people maybe are tapping into, some people aren't. But I got a partner that just runs solar squads, right? They call them blitzes. They bring these kids from all over the country, and they rent houses in places like Fresno, Bakersfield, out in Chicago, anywhere, right? So when they buy properties, they're just buying them because they don't want to rent out Airbnbs anymore for their blitzes. So they don't need them to really cash flow, right? So I don't want that to deter anyone away from the creative deal wholesaling. But anyways, maintenance, vacancy costs, property management costs, insurance costs, right? And then I deduct all that away. For me, it depends on the year of the house, right? If you got a newer house, like, I won't buy anything prior to 1960 anymore. Some people do, I don't. But like I'll just chop off anywhere from 26 to 27% of the gross rent of the rents off top. I'll take that right off the top.
Wait,
And then
say that again. Say that again.
I'll take 26 to 27% off of the rent.
Got it. Okay.
So like if the rent is $2,000, I'll take off 26, 27% right away
For maintenance.
for all my costs.
For all
right?
your costs. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because typically with property management companies now, I negotiate them. I mean, I'm not getting a game buster deal here, but it's anywhere from 7 to 9% for property management. That's really the only one I can negotiate. And then insurance is insurance. You can't really, can't really play around with that too much. But I'll take 26, 27% off the top. And then I'll kind of understand what the rents are going for in that area, what I can push it for, and go from there.
Got it. Got it.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, and you brought a good point too. Like that's you, right? So just because it doesn't cash flow doesn't mean it's a dead deal.
No way.
You just got to find the right buyer.
Yep.
So then now it's about how do you market that deal? Like if you know it's not cash flowing, just say it doesn't cash flow. Just say like who would be a typical buyer for this deal and market it that way. So that way that type of person when they see it's like, "Oh, that's my deal." You know what I mean? And then someone like you, Steve, would be like, "All right, well, it's not a deal for me. I don't want to waste my time on that."
Yep. And check this out, right? So like I've been getting a lot of people calling me from the NOLB No One Left Behind Challenge and bringing deals to me saying, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I was in a conversation yesterday with one of the people in Southern Cali, and good conversation popped up, right? You got to know your hood. So like, for example, they've got a couple deals, right? One's in a part of San Diego that has no business really, doing short-term rental, mid-term rental,
Yeah.
even from a development standpoint. You don't
Yeah.
even want to develop. You don't want to develop there either, right? And understanding the neighborhoods well enough to know, hey, and they're all creative deals, right?
Skyline.
Yeah. So like, well, this one's in like, Skyline, any kind of like deep hood
Yeah.
that are outside of, and don't get it wrong, there are some really significant ghetto neighborhoods in San Diego that are prime for development right now, right?
Sure.
So like a guy like me, I'll buy in Vario or Sherman Heights
Yep.
under creative finance all day. I don't really care about the cash flow too much because I'm just holding on to it until I get permits and plans to get a construction loan to wipe it all out, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I know that, hey, that might not cash flow, but it's in the right specific zoning for my area. So I can buy it as a developer, right? And then, he had another one in PB, right? That was like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, does not cash flow. I don't even know what the ARV is. But the reality is looking at that, he's like, I don't even know, should I just drop it? I said, no, man. Like this is in Pacific Beach, right down the street from this area. What are the HOA guidelines, right? Can you do short-term rental, mid-term rental here? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, we'll find that out. And then also, you look at your homestead buyers, right? Because I've done a lot of wraps too, right? So look at your homestead buyers, man. San Diego, people want to live everywhere in San Diego, but they can't afford it.
That's right.
So, you could take what would be considered a high assignment fee for a property like that in a lot of other states. It might be low for Cali, but it'll be high and relative to where you're at. Take an assignment fee there and then, assign it over to an investor that's going to live there, right? I wouldn't live there. I don't want anything to do with PB. My daughter's 17 years old. I don't want her in that area. Like, hell no. But anyways, long story short, knowing the areas and knowing which buyers would buy that, by knowing where you're at geographically is like super important. Because now look what happened. I just on Facebook last night, and one of the guys was like, "Oh man, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom condo to move into. I got X amount. I need it to be next to a coastal town." I'm like, "What about PB?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." I hit up that other guy that hit me up. I was like, just connected them, right? I was like, I don't want a fee for that. Just there you go, boo. There you go, right? Different type of buyer. So
Absolutely.
I don't know if that rant like answered any questions or brought value, but I hope it did.
No, it definitely did. I mean, the way I was going to say it is like, it's not only the deal itself has to be creative, but you got to creatively think about it as well and how to market it. As long as you know what it is and how to market it, I think that's the key thing. And I think that's where a lot of new wholesalers miss it. I miss it many times. Now I don't miss it as often. But before I totally have because I just didn't know. It's just more like, hey, the numbers seem to work. I got it. I negotiated the best that I can. Now let's try to move it. But knowing people like yourself who can analyze it and go, hey, this is not for me, but someone like so and so would buy something like this, you know?
And you're doing it virtually too, right? So like, guys, like I was a virtual assignment pusher as well at one point in time, right? In neighborhoods that I've never been in before. I'm sure like you guys have done the same. So it's like, but if you don't know those areas, you're going to miss out on these type of opportunities. So like, that's why I like the fact that a lot of people converted to talking to agents, right? Because if you find the right agent who's not a jerk, like he'll tell you the world.
Yep.
He'll tell you where to stay away from and hey, where are the developers at? Hey, where are the hospitals at? Is there a lot of MTR activity wherever, it's hard if you don't know where you're at. And if you're virtually wholesaling, which I think a lot of people, correct me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of people that would be on this channel, they would be like virtual wholesaling, right?
Absolutely.
Learn your hood, man. Yeah. Learn your hood quick.
Learn your hood. John, what are your thoughts, man? Being on the other side, wholesaling it.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of things that Steve had to say. What I've noticed is, again, I've only been wholesaling since 2020. What I noticed is the way the market was, I could put anything up in 2020, 2021, 20, and the buyers would just flock to it. Now they've got their ass kicked for so long, they've kind of returning the favor, like, hey, that's a garbage deal, like blah, 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 blah. But what I've come to realize is there is absolutely a pig for every barn, period. I no longer, I mean, you make valid points. You should know this, you should know that. But if I was a waiter and I had lobster on the menu and you came in and you ordered lobster and you wanted mustard all over it, that sounds horrible to me. But if you're willing to pay for it, I'm going to shut my pie hole. Like, you decide whatever the deal is. So I'll present a deal and we could chop it up however you want. Like, just because it doesn't work for a long-term cash flow in a normal situation doesn't mean that it won't work for a pad split, the co-living, residential assisted living, sober living. Like, with the way the interest rates have been, yes, creative financing has been a savior to help some of these sellers get out of their situations and whatnot. But I mean, there is absolutely a pig for every barn. And I just basically throw it out there and we try to figure out, hey, how could this work for you?
Yep, absolutely.
I like that a lot. Pig for every barn. I'm going to use that today.
Hey, everybody text my lines. Do it.
I'm going to take that.
Dude, John is full of lines, man. Like I was just telling everyone before you hopped on, Steve, like when I first started watching live calls, one of John's lines that I use now, almost every one of my calls, like, I'm no baker. I don't like to sugarcoat things, and everyone attaches to it when I say it, I can relate to it. Lost my train of thought there. I was going to say something. So here's one thing that I used to have a hard time of thinking. How can I say this? All right. So you know how on a cash deal, you got to get it down. You got to get a big discount, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of new wholesalers, and once again, I'm saying I feel because this is it's my experience, right?
Yep.
Is that when I'm able to do a creative deal, if I can do a seller finance or a sub 2, then I don't necessarily have to give them a low ball number. So it's almost like a crutch to go, hey, I'll meet you at your number, Mr. Seller, if I can get favorable terms, right? Which I can understand that line. But there's also just so much. You can't go so far up that it doesn't make any sense, or can it? I mean, at the end of the day, there's still got to be equity. There's got to be something. It's got to make sense, right?
I think it depends on your area, right? Because I've, just probably like you guys too. I own plenty of properties in non heavy appreciated or appreciation, increase areas, a lot, right? And I bought them for a reason, right? For a few different reasons, but like, for example, if I'm buying a property in where I like to be at in a specific town in Indiana, let's say Indianapolis, It's going to be very rare that I'm overpaying for a property. I like current condition retail value. I don't mind doing that, right? But like for example, if I got a house down here in Del Mar, right, in like a high appreciated area in San Diego, I don't mind paying a little bit over because I know the appreciation is going to come back to me anyways.
That's true.
But you got to be careful with that shit, right? We own some properties that we're like, hey, dude, like shit is the fan right now. Not only are you like going negative for what you're not in the green anymore for what you want your cash flow to be for the year, but you keep on putting stuff into that property, you're going to be upside down. You're not going to be able to sell that house or refinance out a substantial amount for a while. You got to watch out.
Yeah.
So I think there is a limit for sure.
Yeah, especially if that's your end game is to cash out refi, which I mean, most investors, if you're smart, that's the end game, right? You pull out money from the bank, there's no capital gains tax, there's no tax on a loan whatsoever. But I agree, but there's also a thought in my mind is if I had $100,000 house that I could sell you for $1,000,000, your answer would be no. But if I had $100,000 house I could sell you for $1,000,000, but your payment was only $500 a month, and you knew you could rent that out for $1,000 a month, that's what we buy. We buy cash flow. So yes, to your point, you're absolutely right. But again, there's a pig for every barn. If my credit is so trash that I can't afford gum, and you're willing to put me in a house on a wrap, and I've got some entry money and I'm willing to pay for that because that's where I want to live and I don't have any other options, sometimes that's the answer.
Yeah, remember, this is a wholesaling show, right? This is a wholesaling
Right.
show. This isn't a what Steve wants to buy show.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
But
yeah,
just because somebody says no to you doesn't mean it's not a deal. It's just not a deal for them. Like, I just have blinders on. Okay, it's not for you. And I just keep throwing it, keep throwing it, keep throwing it, keep throwing it. Eventually, either A, you're going to learn that you're way off base because you don't know the neighborhood like you speak to, right? Or B, hey, I found somebody, but what I've learned by throwing it out to 100 people and I only found one guy, but really that's all you got to find. I don't need 100 buyers. I need one.
That's right. That's true. All right. Well, you guys are opening my mind there, so that's good.
There's a pig for every barn.
That's correct.
Pig for every barn. If there's any takeaway, I always say leave a comment. Your biggest takeaway, that would be it. There's a pig for every barn.
Yeah, we're talking about just because I keep forgetting, right? It's like if it's a strict wholesaling, this is what this is all about. You wholesale anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
one of
for
my,
sure.
And if you're talking about specifically doing I liked more of doing assignments at the end than doing ramps, but I mean, one of our still to this day most profitable stories is a wrap we did in a place called Newcastle, Indiana, man. Right, it's the same thing like what you guys are talking about. It was this property was sold way over fucking value. I maxed out the usury laws. Right. So I upped the interest rate, maxed it out. And to this day, I still receive cash flow from that thing. Yeah, but it did nothing made sense. All right. And also too, it was a shithole. Right. But it found the right contractor that just couldn't get approved for a house, moved in and fixed it up.
Wow.
Well, none of it made sense. Right. I wouldn't have touched that with a fucking 20-foot pole. But he did. And I still talk to him all the time. Good guy. Repaired the house. Now he's got a brand new house, dude. He's a contractor though, so it worked.
Got it. Now here's one thing that I want to add. I'm kind of like going off topic here, but what about wholesaling a sub-2 deal or a seller finance deal, but you still have to make repairs on it? Is that something that can be done? Because I've been hearing that if you're going to seller finance sub-2 deal, usually there's not much repairs that needs to be done. But if there's repairs that needs to be done, then that becomes part of the entry fee. So then there's just a whole lot of different things that I'm going, whoa. Okay. Like that's just way too much for me to think about.
If there needs to be repairs done on a property, that just needs to be negotiated through escrow, but you're not doing it. The wholesaler ain't going to do it. Yeah, no fucking way. Yeah. I mean, I've done that plenty of times. Half the time, when we were doing it out in the Midwest, most of them needed work anyways. That's why I always, for me, when I was doing a lot of these assignments, it was all, we would strictly work off current condition retail value. Start there. And then that's where we'd pick it up. But most of the investors that were getting it anyways didn't care. But yeah, I mean, is that where you're running into? Is that?
No, I had a couple of deals, and one of my partners like, yeah, it's like, because I got it down to where it's favorable, it cash flows, right? Like whatever the monthly rent was, forgot that. Let's say the monthly rent was 2,000, and then the monthly payment to the guy was only like $600 or something like that. So there's like a lot of margins there. But there was a lot of work that needed to be done there. So the ARV was 150. And I was like, all right, well, there's about $30,000 of rehab there. So I actually got it where it was $120,000 seller finance, only $6,000 down payment. Because the way I was looking at it is like, it's in a small town. I don't mind taking a $6,000 assignment fee, right? So 6 plus 6 is 12, which is 10% of the 120, right? And $600 a month to the guy. So I was like, I think that's a hell of a deal. Like, because ARV is 150, there's $30,000 of rehab. So I locked it up at 120 as purchase price instead of 140, which is what the guy wanted. And so the common feedback that we got was, yeah, you have it at 120, and yes, you're at 10%, yes, and that, but there's still rehab that needs to be done. And I'm like, well, that's why I took it down to 120. So I mean, I don't know if I was thinking about it, so I was looking at it incorrectly, or just, so I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
Well, again, buyers, have been, getting their ass kicked the last couple of years. So any opportunity they can to turn the screws back on you, they're going to take that. But again, you just got to, I don't need 100 buyers. I just need the one buyer. But I've done some deals like this. I couldn't get some of them sold. I got some of them sold. I've got some sold that I was like, why the hell did we even lock this up? Like, where did you guys get the numbers from? And some of that stuff is super frustrating because, I've got JV partners and they think that, Zillow is the Kelly Blue Book of houses. And it's like, dude, the A in Zillow stands for accuracy. Like, don't use Zillow. You need to go run some actual comps. And Jamil is the one that told me this. You want to compare apples to apples. You want those apples in the same orchard, preferably on the same tree. So the closer to your subject property, like that's what you've got to go, get done. You've got to find real comps. I've got, knuckleheads in San Diego. I can't remember what the hell the name of. They're a national wholesaling chain. Oh my God, they wasted so much of my time, Caesar. If I ever see those guys, I will fight them. I'm not even like a little bit lying. Like it was network something, but these knuckleheads.
Net worth realty.
There you go. Like, bro, I will put hands on those guys. Like, you just stop yourself.com. So they sent me some, knucklehead thing. It's like, the ARV is like 2.5 million and we're going to sell it to you for 1.5 million. And here are comps 7 miles away in a different city. Huh? Like, no, bro. No. It would be like me comparing properties in Fresno, California to where you guys live. Like, not the same markets. It's just Fresno is not SoCal.
Yeah.
So, no, it gets frustrating. I want everybody to go out and succeed, but there are so many gurus out here that just, I don't know if they've ever really done a deal. I think a lot of it is like, hey, I'm regurgitating something I saw from somebody else, Like I respect RJ Bates. I like his style. I always have. Pace Morby, and I'm not going to name some of the other folks and whatnot, but some of these guys just, you're not doing deals, bro. You're not. You're selling a course, How do you make your money? You make your money selling a course. You're not out here on the phones, grinding it out every day, like getting your ass kicked. Like it's not realistic.
And Caesar, like, it just sounds like that buyer had different goals than what you had fit. It doesn't sound like the deal was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you're giving them current condition retail value,
right,
from a creative finance standpoint, That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
I gotta put in work to a house. Yeah. Okay. You know?
That's what I said. I was like, dude, I got you at $30,000. I was like, the way I looked at it, and correct me if I'm wrong, the way I looked at it is like, look, you're getting your hands on this property for literally $12,000 and $600 a month. That frees up all $30,000 that you need to do to rehab
Correct.
the
You don't
place.
have holding costs on all that money
You
that you'd have to pay and all that too. Right.
Exactly. So
The question is, Caesar, is that who threw out that $30,000 number?
the seller.
So a lot of times, like, you know, this is also another problem I run into a lot with wholesalers is like, you know, them trying to tell me what they think needs to be done to the house.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
$30,000. Sorry,
Yeah,
man.
that roof's only going to take $1,000, you know, to
Yeah.
replace. Like,
No, I understand,
huh?
but in this particular deal though, the house is small, and if I looked at all the comps in the area, they don't need granite countertops. Like $30,000 is
Right.
plenty enough.
Common misconception between granite countertops too, bro. All right. Like granite quartz and then mixing to like a regular like wood-based counter. It's like, don't get it wrong, the cheap countertops you can find for significantly cheaper, but you know, like a lot of people don't even understand how much slabs are, bro. They're not that much.
Yeah,
Like we're talking about 300 to 300 and maybe $75 per large slab of granite. I just did it in a house last night.
yeah.
But
Right.
Steve, isn't that why you want to put those kind of fixtures in? Because in my mind, when I walk in, it's oh my God, it's a nice, you know, it's granite, it's quartz. Like, doesn't that raise the value in my mind as a buyer?
As an appraiser too, right?
There
So
you
like,
go.
but it depends. It depends what your goal is. You know, like
Yep.
if my goal is to buy this thing as a cheapo rental,
Right. You're not going
you
to do
know,
that.
I'm not doing granite. I'll
Right.
probably, if I'm
Yep.
going to do anything, it'll be quartz.
Right. Tile floors.
But the pricing is like the common misconception. Like people, you know, the granite countertops is not that much further if you have like good crews doing your work. But this guy, like, you know, if you got a buyer that didn't want to put in the money to get it to its after remodel value, then there's something going on behind the scenes that was probably happening there that they were complaining about. That's why I thought maybe you were saying the buyer said, "Oh yeah, it's going to take 30,000," and then you go do the work, you get it decreased by 30,000. You're like, "Hey, what's up? Got it decreased by 30,000. You good with this?" And they're like, "Oh, wait a second. You know?"
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. And also too, like if I were to look back at my notes, and I'm just remembering it now, like the seller was saying 10. I'm looking at my calculator based on the square footage. I put 30. So that's why I went for the $30,000 price drop. That being said, that deal ended up being one of the hairiest deal that I ever done, because there was a solar panel on it, and he thought it was already paid off, but it wasn't. And so it went from $120,000 seller finance deal down to $45,000 cash deal. And it happened because no one wanted to touch it because of the solar panels.
Sure.
The solar company, the UCC lien on it and so forth. So I was like, oh my gosh. Finally, we
they actually had a lien on it.
What's up?
They had a lien.
The solar panel. So what happened was the solar panel got sued because they were scamming a lot of people. So the seller said, oh, because we won, the solar's already paid off. But it wasn't. It's just the debt got pushed to another solar company, which is a big solar company in Texas.
Got it.
And so Good Leap, I think it was. And so we called them. I mean, Title obviously saw that there's a UCC appliance lien on it. But what we found, and I'm no lawyer or anything, but this is how Title explained it to us. It's like it's a lien on the solar panel, not on the house.
Yeah.
So
they can come repo the panels.
They can repo the house, but they can't repo the house.
Right.
Yeah, they stopped putting liens on houses a long time ago. That's why I was like, I wonder how old
yeah. So as long as the buyer understands that, and the buyer understands that the title insurance doesn't include the solar panels, and the seller understands that the solar company can still go after the seller, not the buyer anymore, because the solar would still be under the seller's name.
Signed with the seller. Yep.
And so as long as everyone understood that, then we were good
No
to go.
problem. Right.
And the seller was so pissed off with the whole solar thing. He's like, bro, I'm 85 fucking years old. What are they gonna do? Fucking damage my credit score? Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Tell them to take it down, sell this
Mhm.
fucking thing. And so we ended up selling it. But
Solar can be a nightmare for sure, bro. Absolutely. Like I had a deal on market that I sold as a realtor. We're supposed to close on Friday. Something happened, so it had to wait until Monday. Monday, I show up. We're going to do the final walkthrough and whatnot, make sure everything's good. All the solar panels on the top of the house are gone. All of them. They just took the whole solar.
No.
So all you have is the brackets. I'm like, yeah, needless to say, that was a problem.
wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, solar's a pain in the butt, man.
It is.
When we see solar panels, as soon as we open escrow, it's like that's the first thing that gets worked on.
100%.
Yeah.
And then a PPA, it's like, oh my God.
Those
Like,
PPAs in Cali, I mean, that's all they do out here.
that's it. Like, no money
Yeah.
out of your pocket. We'll just throw it up there. We'll be buying your power for cheap.
Yep, let's throw a Tundra on your roof.
Right.
Like, that's
And
already
then
cost-
it's 3% increase every year for 25 years. Like,
Yeah.
huh?
Yep.
Yeah, dude, solar just makes me cringe. I love when those guys come knock my door and I just get to verbally battle with them at my door. My wife just gets so upset with me because I just tee off on these guys. Oh, it increases the
tee off
value of
on
your
those
house.
people. I don't tee off on those people, but just like with phone calls that I receive, I'll talk with them.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if they're that fucking good, I'll try and
Yeah.
recruit them.
Oh,
Yeah.
I want exactly. I want to
Yeah.
spar with somebody that knows what the hell they're talking about. Yeah, if you're good, hey man, I'm not interested in your solar panels, but I know you're out door knocking every day and whatnot. You see any rundown properties, here's my contact information. I'll make sure you get paid.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
brought guys in on the squad. Like guys,
Solar
you
guys
need
are the
quit that
guys to go
job.
get. If you can get them,
Yeah, I'm
you're
like,
out
you
there
need-
knocking anyway.
Yeah, I'm like, you need to quit that job. You just come work
Yeah.
for
What are you doing, bro?
me.
Exactly.
You're ripping people off. Go help people. Yeah.
So, guys, I always want to try to make it as simple as possible for people, and I don't know if we can be achieved here, but I think you can. So, obviously, if you can create a deal where it cash flows, that obviously is the best way to go about it because then it opens up multiple strategies for you, right?
Yep.
So let's say the place can rent out for $2,000 a month. Let's just assume that.
Okay.
If it's $2,000 a month, where do you want the PITI usually to be at? Half of that?
The simplest answer is as low as it can possibly go. But I mean, I like at least a $500 spread because I can sell that. Because I can basically go to a guy like Steve and say, hey, I got a $500 spread. You're usually about $300 with, your insurance, et cetera, and stuff where you think you can make this thing work. And either he can or he can't. And I'm on to the next pig.
You're the next pick. I gotcha.
If it's I'd say if it's a $2,000, if it's $2,000 gross rents, and if they do have a mortgage left on it, if they can land at a mortgage around like 1,000 to 1,100, I'd rock it because that would leave me at roughly 480 to 380 net if there's no HOA or external expenses.
That's what I'm saying. Because you said, if I remember you correctly, Steve, you said 26% off of all like the fees, right?
Mhm.
On the year, yeah, right. So that would roughly be what, 500 something bucks a month just for base expenses.
Yep.
And then depending on where you're at, like if I'm in Indiana, I sometimes if the house is a little bit older, because obviously houses are way older in Indy. Sometimes I'll leave a little bit more out there for vacancy because of weather, because they're in winter time. A lot of tenants are rightfully. I mean, they don't pay attention to certain things, and pipes freeze, and so I'll leave a little bit more for maintenance in those situations. But yeah, man, I mean, if I'm rocking it, I can get 300. Like I said, for me, 300 net in those areas, then I'm good.
Got it. Okay. All right. So I mean, that's how I've been kind of looking at it lately. It's like just slash it in half, because then I still have that extra half to make, for maintenance fees, capex, all the other stuff, right?
Well, calculate it out, right?
Realistically, how many of those do you really come across, Caesar? like where
Well,
it's
no,
half.
that's why I get
Really?
away from them. I'm like, I'm just straight up cash deal. Like, no, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. But like when I'm talking to someone, the way I'm looking at it right now is like when I'm talking to someone, if I let's say if it's on a sub two deal, if their monthly mortgage, their PITI is $1,000 or less, and I can rent it out for 2,000, I'm like, okay, I've got a deal here. But if their PITI is like, let's say 1,500,
Yeah, it's
1,800
tight.
bucks, and it rents only 2,000, I'm like, ooh, that's a really, really tight,
It's
right? So
tight.
I'd rather just do a cash deal or innovation than a sub two deal.
Well,
That's what I'm trying to get.
get to your decision tree, right? And if you don't have one, you got to make one. Keep it simple,
Okay.
right? Because like that's what I do. If when I was specifically, handling assignments and wholesaling, I was like, does this thing cash flow traditionally? No, it doesn't. Okay, well then I go down this road instead.
Yeah.
Right. Because I used to know a whole wing of buyers that I used to call a kind of, I don't know, kind of a funny name, but I used to call them lease option pimps. Right. So these guys will buy those properties and just lease option, dude.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
they don't care about the cash flow.
Yeah.
Right. That's why, like what John was saying, right? It's like there's different strokes for different folks, man. So like if it turns out it doesn't cash flow traditionally, move down the next one. See who's in your buyer pipeline. And that's why I think one of the biggest reasons why so guys, just for some context, right? When I was running a wholesaling operation, at one point in time, we had $30,000 in expenses monthly, right? For me, that was big, right? Some of the guys that I know they're like, oh yeah, it's funny, it's cute. But for me, that was big. I was like 30
Mhm.
grand a month I got to come up with to just base my monthly nut, right? So one thing that we did wrong was that our disposition guy, his job isn't just supposed to be dispositioning deals that we bring in and we had them running numbers too. His job's to fucking stack the buyers list.
That's right. Yeah.
So every
Yep.
single
Yep.
day, guess what, buddy? You got to be stapping along your time and time blocking out and stacking buyers. So that way, when Caesar is doing all this hard work and talking to all these people and bringing these deals to the table, well, guess what? When you walk into the ice cream shop and you say, I'm allergic to nuts, guess what? Oh, we have just plain chocolate too.
Yep. Yep.
Right. So that way you have your decision tree to work down and say, well, guess what? This one's going to go down to our lease option buyers or our midterm rental buyers instead. Throw that in that bucket and have the dispo guy work on that. Let me know if that's realistic. Right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
like that's one of the biggest mistakes I think that if you are in a wholesaling company, that a lot of people make, is that invisible thing that you need to stay busy with, and you gotta fucking do it. If you're not stacking that buyers list every day, you're doing it wrong.
100% agree with you.
I think so. That's my opinion.
No, 100%. Because I think dispo is pretty difficult in the beginning, but once you start creating and building that relationship, then dispo just goes like this.
You should be pairing and talking with them like every day. So,
Yeah.
luckily enough, we had an office at the time, and, if I need to poke my head out that door and say, hey, dude, I got a fucking negative $50 cash flow property in a nice area right here. What do we got? Oh, wow. We got John over there that just does lease options, dude. He just hit me up the other day because we also refreshed the list too. So that means that not only should you be hunting for new buyers every day, every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we had set an automation in place to say what's up to the buyers, right? Nothing generic. No, don't put all that spammy shit out there. Just like we used to have real messages go out to these guys. But hey, what's up, John? This is Steve, dude. I thought about you the other day because I found this deal. Hopefully everything's cool, man. You guys looking for anything right now, or what are you guys at? Right? I want to make sure I'm not bugging you, right?
Yep.
And you can that way you have the options.
That's great. That's great. And Jamal right here loved the decision tree, by the way. So,
dude, you can get that for him, Caesar. There's got to be that's not original, right? I didn't just come up with that idea. Decision trees are everywhere, man. Like if you're, I think that you can naturally progress the conversation right now into running a wholesale operation, right? Because a lot of us start out like, dude, I started out in a garage with an Excel sheet, right? Yep. And a Google Voice number, like a lot of us did, right? So, when you start building out that operation, from where you actually now have your spend every month and you're growing to a certain extent, what is that supposed to look like? What is that supposed to be? So instead of you just going, hey, I'm going to start making some calls today, and you start structuring them, right? And here's another thing, dude, that if anybody cares, that's listening or anything of that nature, the biggest things I can say is where I made a mistake with our wholesaling company was just like with everything else that I do, that I do it now. You got to draw your roadmap.
Yeah.
Right. If you hop in a car, let's say you just go outside right now, you get in your car and you start driving, but you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? You plug in your GPS or you're going to the store, right?
Yep.
Well, a lot of people start in their companies and they think that because they don't have enough things going on, that they don't have to draw this up now. I'll do it later.
Yep.
Incorrect. Right? Don't get it wrong. There's plenty of people that have plenty of success, dude. Just throwing noodles at the wall and seeing what sticks, rock on. But if you really want to build a company to scale, you got to start doing it now. If everything you do, you should be writing down an SOP and getting that ready to be in a system so that way you can walk away from it. Because who in here has a vision of becoming 65 years old and still dialing on the phones for deals?
Right.
If that's your goal, dude, I love your style. Do your thing. If that makes you happy, rock on. But for me, at least, I never had that in my mind where I was like, I'm going to be doing this forever. Like no way. So anyhow.
No, that's very true. Very true. All right, guys. Well, we're coming close to that hour mark. So just wanted to see, I think we probably talked about this already, but if you guys can just maybe get into a little more detail on it. Phantom cash flow versus real cash flow. Because a lot of people think it cash flows when it doesn't, right? And it goes back to that thing that I was saying earlier where mortgage payment's $1,500 and you can rent it out for $2,000. It's like, ooh, it cash flows $500, but it really doesn't. And the reason being for that is because there's other fees that we have to think about, right? And I've been out of the sub-2 game, the creative financing games, but what are some of those fees? I know it's management fees, maintenance and repairs. What else am I missing? Vacancy, right?
Vacancy. Yep.
And then what is it?
Any kind of alternate expenses like HOA or, solar bills, stuff like that.
Solar bills. Okay. Got it.
And if you guys want to and granted, actually, you know what? I've been talking way too much. John, I'm sorry. I don't want to steal any kind of freaking, I'll keep talking. You guys got to stop me.
Right? No, you're doing fine, my man.
Yeah, I'll just keep on rambling. I actually have something that, and you guys probably have it already, but, when we were doing this, man, it's as simple as just getting an Excel sheet popping, right? So property management, can't forget about that, right? So whatever your property management costs are, for me, 7 to 9%. I don't know what you guys are getting it at, but that could change for everybody depending on where you're located or how many properties you have. But 7 to 9% is pretty solid for a single family, right? If you're doing multifamily commercial properties, if you're entering into co-living space, those are higher, right? So property management costs, obviously. Any kind of extra other expenses that are involved. Insurance, can't forget insurance.
Insurance, right? Yeah. So I just pulled this up, and I had to dig this out because I haven't used this in a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, taxes, guys. Dude,
what was it?
People don't talk about taxes enough.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of folks, if you're talking about sub-2 transaction, a lot of the times those taxes are going to be included in your mortgage, right? But a lot of people don't understand, depending on the state that you live in, what external insurance policies you are going to need to obtain, right? Like to get fire insurance policies here in San Diego now, it's nuts. Dude, remember that quadplex I walked in Houston, Caesar? Yeah. Right? I did the due diligence on the insurance there. Texas, oh my God, good for them. But
through the roof.
There's a million different kinds. Yeah. Right. So, you have the gist there. Obviously, I think a lot of us in sub-2 are used to calling the maintenance war chests. And then everything else involved there would be coming from extra utilities. So like if you're sub-2ing condominiums or anything like that, some people charge extra for parking spaces. If you're sub-2ing, you start talking about the manufactured home sectors, you have to worry about those lot fees and stuff like that.
Got it.
Okay. That would be the gist.
So this is pretty much still pretty good, right? Are these percentages you think are the right percentages to put on next to like management fees, maintenance and repairs, estimated
Uh,
cap?
I can tell you what we do, right? I think
Yeah.
so maintenance and like war chest and stuff like that, I upped it to 8%.
To 8%. Okay.
Yeah, I upped it to 8%. Property management, I just did 9% in hopes that nowadays I try to negotiate them down, and I usually get 7 or 8%, but 9% is what we do for property management. Vacancy costs 7.5%.
7.5, huh?
I do 7.5 for vacancy cost.
Okay.
HOA and utility is always different per structure. Taxes, it depends where you're at, but if you take an annual, take a 2% cut and then divide that annually, is kind of what we were doing. And then insurance, that's a whole different beast. I start with 1% and then dictate upon what kind of policies we need for the state that we're in.
Got it. Okay. What about for the estimated CapEx?
CapEx for you guys, that would be, I don't normally use CapEx in that manner. Is that going to be just what is that for you guys in there? What?
Well, actually, I was going to ask you guys, what is exactly CapEx again?
John looks like he was about to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that it's like, if you're going to make improvements, stuff like, you've got to replace the roof, stuff like that. But I throw it all under that maintenance and repairs bucket. I'm not trying to do anything extra to add to the costs because it takes away from the bottom line. And you got to know, you've just got to have multiple exits in today's market and whatnot. Like I've really started driving down the residential assisted living facilities, sober living. Like you can make, a house that doesn't work for everybody else. That could be a great exit for you if you can figure that out. I've got a guy that bought a house for $250,000, got a company to sign a $25,000 a month lease with him for 5 years with 2 triple net lease. So they're taking care of all the taxes, the insurance, the repairs, the everything. And basically he took that down, had a commercial appraisal done on a residential property. It was a 30-bedroom property. The bank said, based on this, the house is worth $1.2 million. Here's $800,000. He put a sprinkler system in and whatnot, and he nets $13,000 a month. Like that's not something you hear about every single day. Like that's kind of a unicorn, but I've watched this guy do it multiple times.
Awesome. Yeah, CapEx wise, just like what John was saying, for single family properties, I lump that into maintenance and repairs. Now, if I'm talking about a commercial property, then I'll start using CapEx.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, because you got tenant improvements and whatnot. Like that's a different animal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then capital expenditures, when you start using them in different modes, like commercial properties rock on. But you can use CapEx. You can use that terminology in business in general too. So like for a construction company, right? We have a specific CapEx that we use, different, separated from OpEx, right? But for single family properties, we load them up into maintenance and repairs.
Okay. So you said earlier all of that you pretty much just put 26%, right? That's all you do.
Depending on the age of the house, right? If it's an older house, I'll go a little bit higher. Just to throw in that buffer.
Okay. When you say depending on the age of the house, like where's
that line? So like I don't buy anything before 1960 anymore. Okay. Originally, like when we started walking properties in Indy, and this was pretty cool because I was walking in houses. I was like, this is totally haunted, right? There's no way that this property I'm walking from 1894, somebody would die in here. Right. We started really understanding what happened after the wars. So just like how you can understand how there was a drywall shortage and, specifically in Florida, there was this huge drywall shortage. You started buying, drywall from China. I think it was circa 1976. I could be wrong on the year, but close to it. And this drywall that China was selling all these folks, after a while, started smelling sulfur. Right. So like you start looking into the materials that we didn't have in certain decades in Indiana. Mm-hmm. If you look at there's a lot of, the floor joists. right? In a lot of houses in Indiana, you'll cause a lot of sloping. It's because we didn't have the materials to build the correct floor joist sizes, right? Another example, if you have walls that are sagging, like that look sagging skin on a wall, that's because we didn't have drywall. They had to makeshift it, right? Another thing to look out for in the Midwest is sewer lines. So like, the sewer lines, dude, they would make these out of like industrial paper mache.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I don't want to say paper mache because it wasn't flimsy, but like it's industrial.
Yeah.
So that's all that's flushing out all your stuff. So anyways, we stopped buying circa certain years in those areas because you just really can't tell. And if you're moving and grooving like you guys are, if you're hustling and you're moving property to property to property, it's like you can't get an inspection on every property like that.
Yeah. No, 100%. Well, John, I got a question for you because it is a wholesaling channel, but I always like to have end buyers on the call though, because at the end of the day, our clients are you, Steve, right? Like you're our customers, the end buyer, right? And so that's why I wanted to kind of see it from your lens. But John, if you don't mind, you just talk about like how do you structure, and I know this is a heavy loaded question, so you can go probably for hours to answer this question, but like how do you get into a creative financing deal, and how do you structure it where it's okay, it's something that you can rock with?
Well, the number one thing is you got to have buyers that not just guys that you met on Facebook and whatnot. Like you've got to really know these folks and whatnot, because what's not talked about a lot, and I've had this happen a couple of times, I put a deal together with a seller, and then the buyer that I sell it to just stops making the payments. Well, who do you think the seller's going to reach out to? Me. It's my name. It's my reputation on the line. And then, I got a $20,000 paycheck, but now 6 months later, I'm drug right back into this thing, like, hey, you told me this, and this, and now this is happening. That's my biggest concern with wholesaling creative deals. You've really got to understand who your buyers are. And I'll be honest with you, I've got, a majority of my buyers right here in my phone that I can like just call up and have a conversation. A lot of my closing style is, if I can do this, would you do that? If I could sell you this house for $100,000, would you buy that? I basically have the give and take. I've got a good enough relationship with my guys, and those are my guys, and that's just it. So I get text as a realtor. I get text messages. I got one yesterday. Hey, we're buying stuff in San Diego. Well, duh, who isn't? Okay, like there's nothing magic about you. I don't know you. Like, I go, I've got a couple of buyers that I work with. Well, why don't you make it a hat trick? Because I don't know you. Like, you've got to buy some shit deals from me to get the good deals. That's reality. I go to my top level, then I've got a second level, then I got the knuckleheads that I've met on Facebook.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is one of my number one fears, is like wholesaling it, and then they're married to that buyer is married to that seller, or that seller is married to that buyer, and if something goes sideways, first one,
my reputation. Yeah, no, my name means everything to me. Like, that's the number one thing. And I've had stuff fall apart, like, and I've got to go, reclose everybody.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring that up too. It's like, you got to know your buyers, because if you're just selling it to someone that you find on Facebook, it can bite you in the butt, and
big time. And
it might not be worth that $5,000, $10,000, $20,000.
No,
with that type of headache. So yeah, perfect. Well, guys, I know we're getting there. So lastly, Steve and John, like, how can people JV with you? I guess that would be for you, John. Steve, how can they send you good deals?
Is there on was it StreamYard? How do you, well, I guess you guys can just reach me on IG. We obviously, I'm just like, probably like everyone else, we have links for everything, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you
You can
guys,
put it in the comments, by the way, Steve. I don't know if you can
oh,
see.
will that reach everybody? Okay.
Yeah, where it says
Yeah.
comments.
Yeah, I'll
It's-
send out. I'll just send out my IG, man, and by all means, guys. Another thing too, for me, like I said, I develop and I do construction here in San Diego. So for me, I'm looking for development opportunities. So if you guys have anything out here in San Diego, even creative wise, that could really work. It could get you a bigger payday too as a wholesaler. So I'm looking for that kind of stuff. And then, you know, by all means, I help wherever I can. So if anybody has any questions about any of the stuff, it's literally my obligation in the creative finance world for Southern California to help you. So, you know, you give me a call if you want to talk through some things or anything of that nature. And hopefully we can, you know, take care of you guys.
Yeah, and you can fill out my JV form if you wish at sniperforhire.com, sniper _for_hire on most of the platforms. I mean, you guys can reach out to me. I love to talk real estate all day, every single day. You know, a lot of folks, the newer people, they do what I call mentally masturbate. Well, what if a meteorite falls out of the sky? And what if this happens? And what, like, bro, don't worry about any of that stuff. Like, go get me a deal. Like, they're all gung ho and whatnot. But, like, until you've been on this phone grinding it out, like, you don't know. Until you've been verbally abused by the best of them, you know, like my favorite, you know, like, hey, are you interested in selling your house? Did you see a sign in the front yard? And, you know, they just start jumping down your throat. Like, you know, I used to engage with that. It's on to the next one. Like, let's go. There are so many people out there that need help. And the one thing that you guys just missed the whole boat on, it's never really about the house. It's just not. It's about what the seller is trying to accomplish. If the seller wants way too much money, they want more money than their house is worth, well, then I can probably put a deal together. I have to figure out, as Pace would say, you know, what the bunnies are. You have to figure out what the problem is and how you can solve it. If I give you a lowball cash offer and you don't like that, well, then we can go to the novation. We can go to the sub two, seller finance, combination of the both. Like, how can I figure out? And that's one thing, like most of you guys only have, you know, a cash deal in your pocket, or, you know, you don't have a bunch of multiple, what I call real estate golf clubs. Like I've got a bag. If I'm standing on the, if you tell me the next hole is a par 3, 150 yards, that can be an 8-iron. But if I'm standing on the tee box and there's water and the wind's coming in my face, I'm going to need more club. Or if it's at my back, I might need less club. I really don't know what the solution is until I'm standing on the tee box, if that makes sense.
I think John used to be a rapper, huh?
I did, actually. I did. They used to call me Air Mods. I don't even want to start getting into it. But yes.
You can tell.
Yeah.
The analogies for days. That's awesome.
I love it. Well, guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And then what I'll do too is I'll when I update this, I'll include all you guys' information and links on the description below. So when people, you know, watch this in the future, they at least can have your information. They can always reach out to y'all.
And Merry Christmas, guys.
Yeah, Merry Christmas as well. Let's connect, Steve. I'm sure we can get some deals done.
100%. Yeah, no worries. Just let me know anytime. And yeah, well, hey, can you start a thread, Caesar? Maybe share our contact info with each other?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'll do. I'll send you guys a text with all three of us, and we'll go from there.
All right. Appreciate the opportunity, guys.
Gentlemen,
let me know if you guys need anything.
I just want to say,
guys,
because I've learned a lot from both of you guys since, you know, when I first started. And Steve, you've always been there telling me, teaching me things. So John, yeah, like I call you from time to time and we just shoot the shits and I hear you talk. So a lot of things that I know now came from you guys. So I just want to thank you.
Dude, I appreciate you. I love your show, man. Literally.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Man.
You got a great camera energy and keep it moving, man.
I hope so.
Don't stop. All right, brother. Thank you so much, guys. Happy holidays.
Have a good one. Thanks,
you
guys.
too. Later.